Hi everybody, I'm Zilla Blitz and welcome. Today's episode is going to be rather unique. Cube4Me storage trays, which makes storage trays for war games, usually make sets that are specific to a particular game. So if you have Empire of the Sun, you buy their Empire of the Sun storage tray set. But they also have a universal tray set, which is basically a box of trays, and they just say do whatever you want with them. So they send along one of those storage tray sets for me to take a look at, and I wanted to see what kind of games could we put into these trays and how many games could we get, how many counters and things like that. So I've been exploring this over the past month, and today we're going to go through a bunch of games that I was able to use that universal tray set for and take a look at the storage solutions that kind of worked out for them. I think this might give you an idea whether this would be a storage tray solution that would work for you. Before we start out, one technical thing is what's in the universal tray set? Well, the one I got was a little bit different than the one that looks like it's on the website now, but still should work very well for comparison purposes. So storage tray solutions come in two different sizes. They have small trays and they have large trays. The small trays have 12 compartments and the large trays have 20 compartments. Now each of these, the small and the large, also come in two different depths, 8mm and 15mm, so a deep one and a shallow one. So we've got basically four different configurations of trays to work with. Now I noticed the universal tray set also now has a tile tray that's like 25 compartments. I didn't get that one, so I can't really evaluate that one. But today we're going to take a look at, in this universal set, you get two small trays that are shallow, you get two small trays that are deep, you get three large trays that are shallow, and four large trays that are deep. Let's see what kind of mileage we can get out of these trays. Our first contestant, Heroes of the Bitter Harvest from Lock and Load Publishing. This is the latest module in their Lock and Load tactical system, individual vehicles and squads. It takes combat to the East Front. One of the reasons I wanted to try the system, the trays with this game, is that the counters are three different sizes. These vehicles are 7/8 inch. There's some like field guns and stuff like that that are 3/4 inch. And then these infantry counters are 5/8 of an inch. So how would the storage tray solution work with this? Also, there's about 500 counters in the game, so a big storage solution. Let's see what we're able to come up with. All right, so here's my solution. On the right, we have a large 8mm shallow tray. On the left, we have a large 15mm deep tray. These two trays are able to hold all 500 counters in the game. Now, you can see what I did over here in the bottom left. These 3/4 inch vehicles, they could fit too wide actually, which was pretty cool. I didn't think about that. And if we think about this, one of the things is it's amazing how much one of these compartments can actually hold, because you can get about 8 of these counters, and these are pretty thick, stacked up in a pile here. So 4 piles of 8, there's 32 here. That's 100 and, well, over 100, 128 here. You know, times 5, you could theoretically get all 500 counters easily into one of these trays, but the challenge is you want to be able to play the game, right? So it's not just a matter of stuffing the counters into the tray, it's thinking about how you're going to use the counters when you play the game. With that in mind, I was able to get the markers for the game here on this right tray, and then the units for the game with the Soviet units up here and the German units down here on this part of the tray. But it worked really well. I could get 3/4 inches, I could get them too wide in here. Nice big stack, so this is the German vehicles. I got a little creative and I put these are the 7/8, sorry. I got the 3/4 inch counters here, a little bit extra Soviet armor and stuff like that. So all the bigger counters are down here. Turrets for the vehicles here. There are a bunch of different types of Soviet infantry, so I mixed those up so it'd be easy to find later. Support weapons here, Soviet heroes here, Soviet leaders here, German leaders, German heroes, and then the various infantry units over here, German support weapons, and then there's a bunch of motorcycle units for the Germans as well. So I think it's going to be really easy to get these out, so that storage solution worked really well. Then on the right-hand side, even though this is a shallow tray, it was able to accommodate all the different counters in the game. Now there's a couple places where I had to double up a little bit, but for the most part, each one of these places holds a singular type of counter and marker. So I imagine playing the game, I'll have this off to the side and be able to kind of reach in and grab the particular counters and markers, the markers that you need for that particular situation in the game. Now, each of these also comes with a cover, and the big question is now, does it fit back into the box? Now, there is a lot of stuff in this box. It's a 3-inch box, but there's a ton of stuff in it. And one thing that I didn't accommodate, there are these card trays that I could have used. They wouldn't work for these larger cards. These are much bigger than traditional cards. I've just got them kind of bagged out and laid flat like that. So I'm not working with the storage tray solution to handle the cards in this case. But Drop the rule books in, a little bit of an earthquake there. Drop the trays in. I slid the dice down the side there on the vertical, and then the question is, how well does it fit in? Answer is, it is nice and snug. There's maybe, actually there's really not a lift. Maybe an 1/8 of an inch lift there, if I kind of just let it rise up and stuff like that. But really nice fit, really snug solution. Super happy with how this one works out. I think it's going to make the game a lot easier to play. Let's go on to game number 2. Our second game, Traces of War by Tetsuya Nakamura and published by VUCA Simulations. This game involves Axis versus Soviet combat in Ukraine after the Battle of Kursk in World War II. One of the reasons why I wanted to approach this game was that it's a game where units come in various sequences. So you've got reinforcements for the Soviets in a bunch of turns, you've got a bunch of replacement units. So I wanted to see how I would be able to handle a system like that using the storage trays. Again, thinking of that balance between getting all the counters in the storage trays and being able to play the game later on. Let's see what I was able to come up with. So here's my solution. The right side is a small 8mm tray. The left side is a large 8mm tray. So they're both the shallow trays. Didn't need the deep trays for this one. What's really cool about this, I've got all of the Soviet stuff on the left and I've got all the German stuff on the right. Now I originally had it into 2 larger trays, but then I realized I didn't need a large tray for the German ones because there aren't as many units and their reinforcement schedules are a little bit differently. But what's really cool about this, for the Soviet ones up here, these are all the units that are going to start the game on the board. And then these here are the reinforcements for turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, turn 5, and turn 6. So when I'm playing the game, I don't have to fumble around for the reinforcements. I can just know right here, this is the compartment for that, and pull them all into the game. Likewise, going through here this way. Now the Germans work a little bit differently. They don't have turn reinforcements. They have replacement units that are infantry and armor. So likewise, I have the starting units for the Germans up here. Then I have these are, I think, yeah, these are infantry replacement units, armor replacement units here, and then some of the markers, some of the control chits and stuff like that. The game also comes with alternative armor counters. And I put those down here with NATO symbols instead of the silhouettes. I like the silhouettes, so I just kind of put the NATO ones down here and spread them out a little bit, and these are the German ones there. And the control counters and everything, but everything nice and elegant, and I think this is going to be a really cool system for playing the game because it's really going to speed up looking for replacements. You don't have to fumble in a baggie, it's just all right there. Now the question is, how does it fit back in the box? Because this is a very shallow box. So this is a 1.5 inch box. It has a paper map, so there's not a ton of depth to it and things like that, but check it out. It fits in like that. We turn this like this. These are big honking dice, but by having one small tray and one large tray, it actually gives some room to drop those dice in. If you swapped out the dice, 2 large trays would work as well. And then we put the cover back on and it goes absolutely completely all the way back down, no problems whatsoever. So I am really happy with the solution for this one. Again, I think it's going to not only store the trays well, but speed up gameplay as you're playing the game. Next up, Skyhawk Rolling Thunder 1966, designed by Steve Dixon and Bob Best and published by Legion Wargames. This is a game set in the Vietnam War where you lead a pilot in a Skyhawk fighter bomber over a number of missions in a campaign system over Vietnam during the Vietnam War. Let's dig in and see how this worked for the solution. Another reason I wanted to try this one is that it has 3 different sizes of counters as well, and just shy of 300 counters. So the counter set for this game is just shy of 300 counters. So it is, and they have 3 different sizes. We have 1.2 inch counters here, 3/4 inch counters over here, and then 0.6 inch counters here. So a bunch of different varieties to play around with and a lot of 3/4 inch and stuff like that. This is the solution. This is one shallow 8mm tray. I was able to get, the key with this game I think was sorting out the munitions. When I had these in baggies, it was really hard to find them and I was always fumbling around for them and stuff like that. Now I've got the munitions scattered out in the middle here over 6 trays, kind of organized roughly by type, which makes it really easy to find. Then we've got medals and things like that. I've kind of distinguished those in 3 different types here. Some of the markers, these are all the support aircraft, experience markers, the markers for the different targets. These are the different other targets in here. These are the status of the targets, pilots, and then all of the Skywalker planes over here, and some extra counters here. Really easy to get into the shallow 8mm tray. So I'm really impressed with how it gobbled up nearly 300 counters. It makes it look like there really aren't, you know, a ton of counters in the game. Again, that vertical height you can get on these is quite well. So let's see with the tray on top, let's see how well it fits back into the box. So it slides there, goes in there. Just got to add the dice, plop, plop. Cover goes on, and, whoops, no problems. Perfect snug. It's got plenty of room, actually. It doesn't even go close to the top. Skyhawk Rolling Thunder. Nice, easy one-tray solution to speed up gameplay, I think. Game number 4. Panzer, the game of small unit actions and combined arms on the Eastern Front. This is kind of an Eastern Front theme here, isn't it? Now that I realize it. This classic core game that is the base of the Panzer system that GMT Games publishes. I wanted to try this one because it presents a unique challenge in that it's got a big wad of cards that you have to be able to fit back into the game. They're the data cards for all the units. So could we get that back in the box? Let's take a look at what worked out for a solution. So here's my solution for this one. These are two small 15mm, the deep small trays. And I'll show in a minute why I wanted to use the smaller trays for this game. But it worked out really well. Almost exclusively on the right-hand tray here are the counters for the game. This game has the markers for the game. This game has a lot of markers, and by doubling them up, so basically 2 in each compartment, I was able to get them all into one small type of tray. So I think it's still going to be easy to find and shuffle through. And visually, again, with these trays, I find that you can see a lot of information. This game does have a lot of counters, 3 counter sheets, in particular, a lot of markers in the game, as we can see. And again, really depth. I didn't really sort these out. I just kind of chucked them in there because I figure I'm going to be kind of fumbling around with them and stuff like that. But really kind of convenient and nice, smooth fitting all of those counters into this one tray. On the left-hand side here, we have the units. And again, we've got 2 different sizes. We've got these larger armored unit counters that also could like the aircraft and stuff like that. And then the smaller, these look about 5/8 of an inch infantry counters. And I was able to kind of fit everything, again, kind of organized it well. We've got different types of Soviet armor and their larger counters here, the German counterparts up here, the infantry's in the middle. These are all kind of support weapons and support weapon teams and stuff like that, and mortars and machine guns. Regular infantry here, the turrets for the game here, and then the only marker that I needed to pull over to here was the turn marker ones here that are there. And these, I actually forget what these numbers are for, but there's a series of counters here that have numbers on them for the game as well. All fits in really nice. Now let's see about how it fits back in the box and why I chose the smaller trays. So here's the challenge with this one. You've got actually a good amount of documentation. There are 3 rule books in this one, so it's and paper map, cardboard maps, but it's a pretty hefty stack here, and it's only a 2-inch box, so there's not a lot of room to work with. The biggest problem, however, are these data cards. They're big, they're thick, and it's a nice thick pile of them. So if I put a full tray in there, there's no way the box is gonna go, the cover is gonna get back on the box. However, check it out. By using the small storage trays, so we put 2 of those right there, drop the cards up here, dice go there, cover goes on, and it's all nice and snug. Really cool solution for this one. I really like to, you think like, why would I ever use a smaller tray in a storage solution? But this is exactly why, because you've got some vertical space. If you've got a game with a lot of cards, I think this can work really well. So I'm really happy with this solution. I think it's gonna, again, by having all of these in trays and easy access, I think it's gonna really speed up gameplay when you're playing. So, Panzer from GMT Games. Let's move Next up, The Shores of Tripoli, designed by Kevin Bertram and published by Fort Circle Games. Now this game is a game, a 2-player game, and a single mode, solitaire mode in here as well, that covers the First Barbary War, US Navy against Tripolitan pirates, a card-based, card-driven game, with a lot of different strategy elements to it. One of the reasons I wanted to try this game is that it's not a counters game. It's got wooden blocks in it, so I wanted to see how a solution might work for that. Here's the solution for this game. Now, in this game, I was able to use one of these card trays. There's a deck of cards. I'm not quite sure the exact number, about 50 or so. Fits nice and snug in there, so that's worked. Now, I don't have these sleeved. You'd probably need 2 of these if you sleeve them, but it sits off on the side there, so that's going to be nice for holding the cards in the game. Now we can see there's about 80, a little bit over 80 wooden pieces, and there's a ton of dice in here as well. But the system handled it pretty well. And these larger ships, these are kind of thick, so this is actually one 15mm, the deeper, larger tray. And I suspect if you really wanted to, you might be able to condense this into a smaller tray. If I kind of doubled up these things and some of these things and stuff like that, I think you could probably make it work, but I like the elegance here of the larger tray solution. So I've got the US forces over here, Swedish here, these are Tripolitan ships, all the dice by color, then the ground forces here by color, and then these are the coins that you get in raiding. I could fit more in here if I wanted to. I just really didn't have to be pressed for space on this one, so it was a really easy solution. Let's check to see how it goes back into the box. So this is a 2-inch box. It's got a mounted map, so it actually takes up quite a bit of the space here. But again, it's not a larger component game, so it should work out okay. We drop the 15mm tray in there, put the cards on top, put the box cover on, and presto, everything nice and snug, perfect fit. So yeah, and it worked really well for the block counter solution for this game, I think. Next up, I've been digging into the World at War 85 series lately, and this is the first game in the series, Storming the Gap World at War 85. This is platoon level combat in Germany, set in 1985 in a hypothetical Cold War goes hot World War III type of situation. Again, platoon level, so we've got tanks, 3 to 5 units, and then platoons of 40 to 60 infantrymen, or infantry personnel. So the question for this one is, there's a ton of stuff in the box, and there's over 600 counters. Let's see what type of a solution worked for this one. So for this game, again, I went with the strategy of counters, markers in one tray for the most part, and then units in the other. And this one, kind of like the Heroes of the Bitter Harvest, there's over 20 scenarios in the game, so you're constantly going to be reusing ones. So it doesn't really make sense to organize the units by scenario. You really just want to organize them by type. These are two larger 15 millimeter, so deep trays, because again, we have 600 counters, and these are large counters. These are 3/4 inch counters, so they're not 5/8 inch or 1/2 inch, so really kind of, some bigger, thicker counters here. They come on 7 counter sheets, and again, there's 600 of them. But it worked out really well. I needed to use the deeper trays, and if we see here, these, I've got them organized by nationality and then broken down by their battalion, regiment, kind of brigade command colors here. So these are the East German ones, and most of the time I was able to get 1 or 2 of the color bands in each box. Some of them are larger, they have like a ton of units, like this East German one here with this red band. There were a ton of these, so I just put 1 in there. These are the additional units, the extra ad hoc units here that I've got separated over 2 boxes by types. And the Soviet units went in 8 boxes, West Germans are in 4, and then the US in 4. Again, all separated. For the US, the groupings are smaller, so I've got 4 here, 3 or 4 in each one of these. But it should make setup really fast, because once I know the color band of the formation, I'll just be able to reach into that tray and say, okay, I know they're all in here, and I'll pull the ones out I need. The right-hand side, the only units that I decided to put up here, I could have fit these back in here, but I think for organizational purposes, it was just easier to use these extra tray spaces I had up here. But these are the leaders, and then each side, each nationality seems to have 2 of these orange banded helicopters, and so I was afraid they were going to get lost over here. So leaders in those helicopters for the US, West Germans, East Germans, and Soviets up here. And then spreading out the counters here, I was able to get very similar counter types into their trays here. So this worked really well. It was really easy to organize. So bridges and fords down in here, minefields here, improved positions, helicopters, nap of the earth, and landed markers in here. So I think these are all the missile markers over here. So I think it's going to be really easy to use this system. Again, I'll set up with this, keep this handy on gameplay so I can kind of reach in and pull out the counters, the markers that I need for that. Let's see if it fits back in the box. So a couple of challenges here. This is a larger box. It's a 13-inch vertical box. It's 3 inches deep, but you've got a ton of cards in here. And I didn't, again, use a card solution for these. That might be something to explore in the future, but I've got the dice up here, the cards up here. There is a ton of stuff in here. The manuals and scenarios book are both over 100 pages. There's a ton of player's aids, and there's 8 cardboard maps in here too. So just a ton of stuff, which really doesn't leave much room at the top of the box to fit everything in. Now, however, counters, oops, that just got lifted it up there a little bit, and then our markers, it is flush with the top. We can close the box, and everything is, oops, sorry, excuse the earthquake. Everything is perfectly snug. Now, one thing I would say with this too, if I really were tight on space, you can nest these trays. So I could take off the cover on this one and then put the second tray directly on top of the open-faced first tray. But I didn't need to in this case because it fits in snug without having to do that. So yeah, I'm excited. I think that's going to make this game, again, these larger games, to me it feels like you spend so much time fumbling through setups and fumbling through kind of markers and getting everything organized. I feel like I can pull this out of the box, have easy access all the units I need to set up, and then go directly into having a tray with all the counters and markers that I need off to the side. That's going to make it really easy to play. So really excited for that. At the end of all that, I had one small, thin counter tray left. And I thought, what can I possibly do with that? I needed a game that didn't have many counters. And then I realized I had Point Blank. V for Victory from Lock and Load Publishing. This is a card-based tactical game, but it uses counters for the markers. And I remember when I was playing it, I was constantly fumbling around for the markers because I didn't have them well organized. I had them all in baggies. So I took that last 12 compartment tray and I wanted to see if I could do something with the counters for that, with the markers for that. Let's see what I was able to come up with. And here we go. There are 160 markers in the game. They're all thick counters, 3/4 inch, and all 160 fit in here nice and snug. Now, to be fair, I think I might split up, like some of these are kind of doubled up, and some of these are doubled up. I might actually be inclined to use a larger tray. This is a shallow 8mm 12 compartment tray. I might be inclined to use a shallow 20 compartment tray just to spread these out a little bit for access. But again, this was the last one I had left, so I had to make do with what I had. The cover fits on it nice and snug. I think it's going to be really easy to kind of come in and find these, with the exception of some of these that are doubled up. So again, if you're looking at this, I would recommend for this one to buying a 8mm 20 compartment tray, the large tray, rather than the small one. But this works well. Let's see if it gets back into the box. So one of the challenges for this game is that you don't have a lot of space left over after you handle these kind of piles of 800 cards in the game. And then you've got some thick documentation and things like that. So there's just a little bit of space for these counters. So set it right on top of the middle. It's sticking up just a little bit, to be fair. The cover goes on. Oops, sorry for the earthquake again. Yeah, but actually that's really snug. That's perfect. And maybe a 1/8 of an inch lift on it, but not bad at all. So that's what I did with the very last tray there. And there you have it. 7 games. I think these kits run, I think it's in the $40 range. So 7 times 7, so under $7 each for a storage solution. Keeping in mind that, you know, something like Heroes of the Bitter Harvest here got a massive amount of counters, needed to use 2 big trays. Likewise, Storming the Gap was big. Some of the other ones, you know, Shores of Tripoli, smaller. Traces was smaller as well, 300 counters or so. But I hope this shows a variety of storage solutions. It was kind of fun to do this because they're like little puzzles. Like, what's the fewest amount of trays in size and space I can use, get everything organized, and then fit it back into the box. So it was a really fun project to work on. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'd be curious to hear if you're using some of these, if you like them. What games have you played? Do you like these games as well? And thanks so much for watching. I'll put some links up to a couple of other storage solution videos or videos about these games right up here. You can check those out if you're so inclined. Thanks, everybody. Bye.